I cared for the comatose Payze for 5 years, yet when he awoke, he came to despise me with every fiber of his being. For those 5 years I was asleep, my spirit remained by Shawan's side. Those were the happiest days of my life. How dare you stand in the way of my happiness? You deserve to die. He dug a pit and buried me alive, then stood by and watched with relish as I struggled to my death. Once more, I was reborn, returning to the day Payze awoke, without a moment's hesitation. I turned and walked away, leaving him staring after me, stunned and bewildered. This time, I set you free to find your happiness. I woke up on a bench in the airport departure lounge. My phone kept buzzing, all from messages sent by Payze. I'm awake. No matter where you are, get in front of me within 3 minutes. Lin Ji, you're really the worst. I stared down for a long moment before the truth sank in. I had truly been reborn. Still in a daze, another message from Payze came through. Where is Shawan? I need to see her. I stared at the screen, my heart turning to ice. Both Shawan and I were Payze's kept women, and the reason he ended up in a 5-year coma was all for Shawan. Shawan demanded that Payze get rid of all the other women for her, leading to a huge fight. To win her back, Payze got into a bidding war at an auction over a 106-carat pear-shaped yellow diamond. Because Shawan's birthday is on the 6th of October, Payze was outbid, and his offer to buy it privately was also refused. In a fit of rage, he suffered a sudden heart attack. Although he was resuscitated, he was left in a vegetative state. I tended to the comatose Payze, keeping vigil by his side for 5 long years. But when Payze awoke, what I reaped was not the love I had waited for through the darkness, but his hysterical vengeance. He had me kidnapped and buried alive. No matter how I pleaded and struggled, he just stood by the pit's edge, looking down on me with cold, detached eyes. During those 5 years of slumber, my spirit never left Shawan's side. Those were the happiest days of my life. Why did you have to bring me back here? The hatred on his face incinerated my 5 years of waiting, leaving not even ashes behind. I fought back the sting in my eyes as someone suddenly appeared before me. Miss Lin. I looked up and saw him, Yi Mingji, the world-renowned neurosurgeon the Pei family had paid a fortune to bring in. He was tall and slender, with a cold, detached expression. That look of his made me feel dazed for a moment. Payze treated me with the same coldness. The few smiles he ever had were reserved for Shawan. I was driving Yi Mingji to the Pei family's house when my phone rang again on the way. It was Payze. My phone was connected to the car's audio system, so if I answered, everyone in the car would hear his voice. I didn't want to pick up, but Payze kept calling relentlessly, as if he never tired. I had no choice but to answer the video call. Payze's face instantly darkened when he saw Yi Mingji in the passenger seat. Who is that man next to you? I quickly turned down the volume, but it was no match for Payze's rapid-fire questions. What's this? You've already lined up your next prospect the moment I turn my back, playing the chaste saint with me, then immediately throwing yourself at another man. Lin Ji, you're truly despicable. Yi Mingji raised an eyebrow. My knuckles turned wide on the steering wheel, a prickling sensation washing over my entire body. Amidst the thick, awkward silence, Yi Mingji spoke into the phone, her tone detached. Mr. Pei, you're awake. Congratulations. However, your brain is still in a fragile state. It's best to avoid any agitation, or you risk paralysis or falling back into a coma. Payze's face instantly turned ashen, yet Yi Mingji's tone remained calm and detached. For instance, the emotions you're feeling right now are highly likely to flare up again. Payze slammed the phone down. 2. Upon arriving at the Pei residence, Yi Mingji announced that Payze had fully recovered. Madame Pei broke down in tears, clutching her son. Payze, however, remained utterly impassive, his gaze fixed coldly on Yi Mingji. Where is Lin Ji? I stood at the doorway, not venturing inside. In my past life, when I heard that Payze had woken up and was urgently looking for me, I rushed in, my heart brimming with joy, but Payze grabbed a nearby vase and smashed it against my head. The vase shattered into pieces on the floor, my head was bleeding, and Payze's hysterical roar filled my ears. Who told you to wake me up? Do you have any idea? Those 5 years were the happiest of my life. Lin Ji, you destroyed my happiness. Why don't you just die? Blood streamed down my forehead. As I looked at Payze, my heart turned to ashes. This time, faced with the same scene, I turned and walked away. The butler outside the door was taken aback by my unusual behavior. I said softly, "Tell Madame Pei my task is complete. I'll take my leave now." I left decisively, without looking back. The world believes I volunteered to care for Payze to curry favor, hoping to leverage the debt and cling to the Pei family. Even Pei himself thought so, but I only wanted to repay a kindness. Back then, I was a model on the rise. During one major show, my high heel caught in a small hole on the runway. I fell flat on my back, my ankle twisting to a horrifying angle. The entire venue erupted in chaos, the organizer's scream blaring through my earpiece. Lin Ji, get up now. This show is being broadcast live worldwide. If anything goes wrong, can you even afford the consequences? As I lay there trembling in pain, Pei rushed onto the stage, in his black suit. His expression stern, he took off his jacket, draped it over me, and scooped me up in his arms to carry me off the stage. Afterward, the organizers were furious and threatened to sue me, vowing to sue me for every penny I had. It was Pei who stepped in front of me, shielding me, and said calmly, "She's under my protection. If there's anything to pay for, you come to me." With the head of the Pei group speaking up, the organizers didn't dare to utter another word, and the matter was quietly dropped. I may have dodged a massive lawsuit, but my right ankle was shattered, and my career was over. Just when I had hit rock bottom, Pei took me to his villa and looked down at me with an air of superiority. "Be my mistress, and I'll guarantee you a life of security and comfort." And just like that, I became Pei's caged bird. Pei was incredibly generous, giving me a lot of money, along with all sorts of exquisite, expensive jewelry and handbags. I didn't know how to be a kept woman, so I tried my best to learn from a private tutor how to cook the sirloin and filet mignon he liked. I learned to help him back to his room when he was drunk, gently wipe him down, and change him into comfortable pajamas. After staying by his side for 3 years, one day, he stared at the long scar on my foot and asked, "Do you still want to be a model?" Tears instantly streamed down my face. 3. After that, Pei arranged for me to have reconstructive surgery with a top-tier doctor. While I could no longer walk the runway, the results made me look no different from anyone else. He also helped me set up a model training studio, allowing me to restart my career. My feelings for him also shifted from gratitude to love. Later, in my classroom, Pei met the 21-year-old Xiao Wan, in the full bloom of her youth. When I learned that Pei had spent a fortune for her, I knew it was time for me to bow out. I was the one who initiated the breakup. Pei said nothing, leaving me with nothing but a cold, retreating figure. Yet, less than a week after our breakup, Pei fell into a vegetative state. Mrs. Pei sought me out, insisting I stay by his side and do everything I could to rouse him. Out of a sense of obligation for his past kindness, I agreed, gathering my thoughts. I went back to my room to pack my things. With suitcase in hand, I was ready to leave, but then, Mrs. Pei came looking for me and blocked my way, refusing to let me go. "Xiao Ji, I've seen how well you've taken care of Pei these past 5 years. His condition still isn't completely stable. If you leave, I don't trust anyone else to care for him the way you do." I fell silent. In my past life, when faced with Madame Pei's persuasion, I chose to stay. Later, when Xiao Wan came to visit Pei and saw me taking care of him, her face instantly turned deathly pale. She burst into tears and ran away. Pei frantically tried to reach her. On the phone, Xiao Wan cried, saying she couldn't bear the thought of another woman caring for him the entire time he was unconscious. The very thought of another woman's hands all over him made her sick. Pei flew into a rage over this and made me kneel in the rain all night. I let out a sigh. "Madam, perhaps you should seek Pei's opinion first." Upon entering the hospital room, Pei looked at me coldly, his tone dripping with contempt. "Lin Ji, know your place. Everything you've done these past 5 years was of your own free will. Don't delude yourself into thinking you can trade those years for something that was never meant to be yours." I watched the color drain from Mrs. Pei's face, then said to Pei calmly, "You've misunderstood, Mr. Pei. I only came to tell you that I'm leaving." 4. Pei was stunned. After a moment, he let out a cold laugh. "Lin Ji, cut the act. You're pretending to leave just to play hard to get, aren't you? Hoping I'll beg you to stay so you can cling to me, using such a despicable, low trick. You have no shame." Madame Pei's face turned ashen as she hissed in a low voice, Xiao Ji is not that kind of person." Pei sneered. "Mom, don't be fooled by her. She's just playing hard to get, a greedy, scheming woman. Does she really think I can't see through her?" I listened calmly to Pei's harsh words. There was a time when I feared his misunderstanding most, but now, my heart remained utterly unruffled. "Madam, I should be going." I walked out of the hospital room, pulling my suitcase behind me without a backward glance. Pei's voice, dripping with sarcasm, rang out from behind me. What? You're getting addicted to the act. Fine. I won't stop you. I'd love to see how long you can keep up this charade. I ignored him and kept walking. Paisé finally sensed something was wrong. His tone shifted from mocking to stunned, laced with a hint of panic. Lin Ji, you're really leaving. I opened the door and walked straight out. When I reached my little electric scooter in the underground garage, I suddenly laughed. My little Wuling electric car was parked next to Paisé's row of Lamborghinis. It was fated from the very beginning that we were not meant to be together. I pulled open the car door, ready to put the suitcase in, when I suddenly heard footsteps behind me. I turned my head and saw it was Yi Mingji. Yi Mingji's expression was cool and detached. When he saw me, he gave only a slight nod. Miss Lin, I nodded in return, then turned and got into the car. The car, however, refused to start. I looked down and saw the problem. The battery was dead. Looks like I need to figure out how to charge the car first. What's wrong with you? A voice sounded behind me. I turned around in surprise. Yi Mingji was still there. He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, a hint of embarrassment coloring his cool, detached expression. If you don't mind, I'll give you a ride home after I finish Mr. Pei's examination. 5. I stood outside the main gate, pulling my suitcase, waiting for Yi Mingji. The early winter wind carried a biting chill. I pulled my coat tighter and let out a visible breath. A sickly sweet woman's voice sounded from behind me. Lin Ji, did A's kick you out? I turned around. It was Xiao Wan. She was dressed exquisitely and fashionably, her face haughty, her eyes brimming with unconcealed triumph. Lin Ji, what does it matter that you've taken care of Aze for 5 years? Now that he's conscious, I'm still the first person he wants to see. You've toiled for 5 years. But the moment I, the real one, came back, you had to slink away. How pathetic. I shook my head, thinking to myself that I wasn't even a substitute, just an uninvited guest who barged into their world of my own accord. I let out a faint smile. Yes, I was overestimating myself, so I'm leaving now. I wish you both the best. The moment the words left my mouth, a loud thud suddenly sounded from behind me. Paisé's cane clattered to the floor. He stood rigidly, his face dark and stormy as he stared at me. Xiaowan ran towards Paisé and happily threw herself into his arms. I averted my gaze and turned to leave. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Paisé shove Xiaowan aside and limp toward me. He stopped right in front of me, his face a mask of fury. He stood there stiffly, blocking my path without saying a word. This was just how Paisé acted when he was angry. In the past, whether it was my fault or not, he would give me the silent treatment until I swallowed my pride and apologized. Waiting for his forgiveness, I no longer had the patience to placate him. All I wanted was to leave, yet he stubbornly blocked my path, refusing to let me pass. After a few back and forths, my own temper began to flare. He was the one who started this, and he was the one who grew to despise me. Now that I'm trying to leave, he's the one who won't let it go. What on earth does he want from me? Furious and frantic, my mind in turmoil, I instinctively reached out and shoved him. Paisé, still not fully recovered, was sent tumbling to the ground by my push. There was a time I wouldn't dare speak a harsh word to him, yet now I had laid hands on him. His face turned deathly pale, a mix of shock and fury. Just then, Yi Mingji's car emerged from the underground garage and honked at me. Looking down at Paisé from my superior position, I said coolly, "Goodbye, Mr. Pei." I turned and got into Yi Mingji's car. Glancing back through the rearview mirror, Paisé sat on the ground, stunned and disheveled, with Xiaowan rushing up behind him. He seemed to shout something in my direction, but I could no longer make out the words. 6. Yi Mingji's car window was half open, and the cold wind rushed in, yet it only served to sharpen my mind. He suddenly asked, "Are you really okay with 5 years of effort being dismissed so casually?" I looked at him in surprise. I hadn't expected Dr. Yi to be so nosy, or to have the spare energy to pry into my affairs. I shrugged. Mrs. Pei paid me for my services. I didn't lose out. Yi Mingji didn't say anything more, but he glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his expression a bit odd. As we were nearing home, Yi Mingji suddenly said, during my follow-up, "I found that Mr. Pei's recovery isn't going well. His cerebellar balance is very poor, and there are signs of atrophy. If he doesn't commit to proper rehabilitation, he could end up bedridden again. If that happens, will you still come?" I fell silent for a moment, remembering the events of my past life. Back then, Paisé had just regained consciousness and was still weak. I advised him to rest in bed and not rush into strenuous activity, so, when Xiaowan arrived, Pei happened to still be lying in bed, thinking Pei was paralyzed. Xiaowan put on an act, pretending to be heartbroken before running off. Pei took his anger out on me, which led to my tragic death. By the time Xiaowan arrived this time, Pei could already walk with a cane. Even though he was unsteady on his feet, he could at least stand. Xiaowan would not be leaving again, I said flatly. Someone will take care of him, and even if no one does, it's none of my concern. Yi Mingji said nothing more. After we got home, as I stepped out of the car, he suddenly called out to me, "Miss Lin," during the follow-up examination. Mr. Pei told me something. He said that during those 5 years in a coma, he was like a wandering spirit, staying by Xiaowan's side. He said he saw Xiaowan running her studio, knitting sweaters, and caring for a little dog named Hondo. Even though his soul was floating in the air, those details of her life felt inexplicably real. Yi Mingji looked at me. "Miss Lin, do you really think something like a soul leaving the body in a dream can actually happen?" A shudder ran through me. I stared blankly at Yi Mingji, my heart pounding in my throat. Hondo is the name of my pet schnauzer. 7. I've always loved dogs, but Pei doesn't, so whenever I spend time with him, I leave Hondo with a friend. However, Xiaowan is allergic to dog hair. She even struggles to breathe if one passes by, so she never goes near cats or dogs. Why would the Xiaowan in Pei's dream have a dog with the exact same name as Hondo? I had a vague inkling, but the thought was too far-fetched to believe. I dared not dwell on it. Now that I'm finally free from this relationship, I should make a clean break. There's no need to dig any deeper. I composed myself and said to Yi Mingji, "Dr. Yi, thank you for seeing me home. I'll treat you to a meal sometime." Yi Mingji gave a faint smile. "All right, I wish you all the best, Miss Lin." He glanced at me and suddenly added, "Miss Lin, many people are trapped by their past, afraid to start anew. But in truth, one should have the courage to leave it behind." I shot him a surprised look. Who would have thought this aloof medical elite was also a master of feel-good platitudes? My modeling studio reopened, and I was busy again, recruiting students, scheduling classes for newcomers, with hardly any time to think about anything else. Pei probably never expected me to be this resolute. After all, I left behind everything he gave me. He must have thought I was just throwing a tantrum and would get over it in a couple of days. Now that he sees I've stopped contacting him, he's finally starting to panic. That day, I had just finished teaching my class. As soon as I stepped out, I saw Pei standing in the hallway. He looked at me with a cold expression. "Had enough of your little tantrum. If you're done, come back with me." I couldn't understand what Pei was thinking. He clearly despised me, yet now he was acting like a lunatic, constantly bothering me. "I've run out of patience, too, Mr. Pei. If you're that bored, go take a walk in the park. Stop interfering with my work." Pei sneered. "Lin Ji, who are you trying to fool? So that's your game, is it? Trying to force me to speak first? Fine, you win. Come back with me now, and we can pretend none of this ever happened." I was about to speak when I noticed his odd posture. My professional instincts kicked in without thinking. "Pei, there's something off with your spine." Pei froze. "What are you talking about?" I looked him up and down a few times, then nodded with certainty. "Your spine shows a clear curvature, which is a bad sign. Have you been doing any rehabilitation exercises lately? You should really go see a doctor." Pei was startled. A vein bulged at his temple, and his face flushed, then paled. Suddenly, hurried footsteps echoed from behind. Xiaowan rushed over, linked her arm with Pei's, and glared at me with fury in her eyes. "Lin Ji, you're just his caregiver. Yet you keep clinging to him. Have you no shame? I'm warning you, don't you dare be that kind of sneaky homewrecker." As she was yelling, a sudden bark rang out, and Hondo charged from the doghouse, placing himself protectively in front of me. Pei stared blankly at Hondo and blurted out, "Hondo, 8. Seeing the look on Pei's face, Xiaowan's heart tightened. She yanked Hondo over and sneered, "This is the dog I left here earlier. I never imagined you'd even try to take what's mine. Lin Ji, have you no shame?" I frowned, about to speak, but one look at Pei's face made me change my mind. If Pei finds out that Hondo is my dog, he'll never let it go. It'll just cause more trouble. I don't want anything more to do with Pei. If Xiaowan loves putting on a show this much, let her have the stage. I withdrew my hand and said flatly, "Since the dog is yours, you can take it." Seeing me so cooperative, Xiaowan was taken aback, but in the end, she didn't dare to press the issue with me. Hurriedly, she tried to placate Pei. "You're still not fully recovered. Go downstairs and wait for me. I'll be right there." Paise's face was full of reluctance, but he got up anyway. The moment Paise was gone, Xiaowan abruptly released Hongdou, her expression turning vicious. Lin Ji, if you dare go near Aze again, I swear I'll make you pay. The words had barely left her mouth when her face turned pale, swelled up, and she collapsed to the ground. She had a severe dog hair allergy. To play her part in this charade, she had forced herself to hold Hongdou in her arms. Now, in the throes of an allergic reaction, she looked half dead, halfway down the path. Paise, troubled by thoughts of Hongdou, turned on his heel and headed back. I had just stepped into the hallway when I saw Xiaowan collapsed on the floor, her face a sickly shade of purple. He rushed over in an instant, helped Xiaowan up, and glared at me with fury in his eyes. Lin Ji, just because I love Xiaowan, you'd go this far to hurt her. I rubbed my temples, the whole ridiculous scene giving me a splitting headache. Enough already. This has nothing to do with me. You take her to see a doctor. Xiaowan couldn't even speak, her face flushed a deep crimson. Paise, however, didn't leave. Instead, he rushed forward and grabbed me, refusing to let go. That's enough. How long are you going to keep this up? Xiaowan is innocent. Why are you targeting her like this? The words had barely left his mouth when a cold, detached voice suddenly cut through the air. The patient is having an acute allergic reaction. They need to get to a hospital immediately. Not waste precious time here throwing a tantrum. Yi Mingji had appeared at some point. After a brief, indifferent glance at the scene, she dialed 1209. At the hospital, the doctor took one look and said, "This is an allergic reaction, she needs treatment immediately." But Paise grabbed me tightly and snapped, "What did you do to make her allergic? Lin Ji, can you really not stand Xiaowan?" He should have been concerned about his allergic girlfriend, but all he did was interrogate me. I looked at him and could only find it laughable. Holding Xiaowan's diagnosis report, Yi Mingji remarked with a faint sneer, "The patient is allergic to dog hair. The sudden onset indicates recent contact with a dog. Mr. Pei, it seems you don't care much for your girlfriend. You didn't even stop her from interacting with the dog." Paise was taken aback, instinctively looking towards Xiaowan on the hospital bed. As if struck by a sudden realization, his body jolted violently. His face turned deathly pale, and he stumbled out of the room. I didn't see Paise again for the next several days. I had just breathed a sigh of relief when Xiaowan showed up again. "Lin Ji, I'm here for my lesson." I refused without a second thought. Xiaowan, however, sneered and said, "On what grounds? I paid for 2 years of tuition, and the course isn't even finished. You want to kick me out now?" I let out a bitter laugh. Back then, she insisted on paying for 2 years just to have more chances to get close to Paise, and now she's using that as her excuse. How ridiculous. "I'll refund your money, now get out." But Xiaowan refused to leave. "I'm not getting a refund, I'm taking the class. Lin Ji, if you refuse to teach me, I'll tell everyone you took my money and reneged. Let's see how long your little training center lasts then." My heart sank. The training center was just getting off the ground. If Xiaowan made a scene, it would definitely suffer. I had no choice but to let her stay, but I never could have imagined that on Xiaowan's 3rd day, the classroom was plastered with big character posters. "Xiaowan is a homewrecker. Xiaowan is meddling in Lin Ji's relationship." Xiaowan, her face deathly pale, was huddled in a corner. Before I could even ask what happened, a swarm of reporters suddenly flooded into the classroom. "Miss Lin Ji, is it true that Miss Xiaowan has come between you and Mr. Paise?" 10. Surrounded by a barrage of questions from reporters, Xiaowan looked utterly heartbroken. "Lin Ji, I've never done anything to you. Why would you do this to me? Az and I are truly in love. No matter how much you resent it, you can't go this far to ruin me." She wept bitterly, and the reporters erupted in an uproar, their cameras all turning toward me. I looked at her and applauded with a blank expression. "That little performance you staged for yourself was quite convincing. It's a shame you didn't become an actress." Xiaowan was taken aback and began to cry even louder. "Lin Ji, I know you hate me because of Paise, but I never imagined you would stoop to such vicious methods against me." I ignored her and immediately called security to have all the reporters escorted out. But then, Xiaowan suddenly rushed up to me and shouted, "You've ruined my life. I'll make you regret this." With that, she rushed to the rooftop and, to everyone's horror, climbed over the railing as if to jump. The scene was being broadcast live by reporters when Paise arrived in a panic and shouted at me, "Xiaowan is innocent. No matter how much you hate me, you shouldn't take it out on her like this. If she dies, I will never forgive you." I let out a bitter laugh. This was the man I once loved. I must have been blind, I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. What did I do to her? This whole thing was her own little act, can't you see that, Paisei? All these years I've loved you, I must have been blind. With that, I turned and walked away. Paisei was stunned, his lips parted, he took a step forward as if to speak, but Xiao Wan, in tears, grabbed his arm. It's all my fault. If I were dead, maybe Lin Ji wouldn't hate me anymore. Paisei's expression changed instantly, and he immediately left me to go comfort Xiao Wan. It's not your fault, you did nothing wrong. Lin Ji is the one who went too far, don't be afraid. I'll get you out of here right away. I stood at the top of the stairs and looked up, just in time to see Paisei carefully coaxing Xiao Wan as he helped her down the railing. I looked away and strode off without another glance. 11. The next day, when I arrived at the studio, I found a seal pasted across the door. The property manager said, "The owner wants this office space back. You'll have to find somewhere else yourself." My face went pale. I understood instantly that this was Paisei's doing. He was actually going to such lengths for Xiao Wan, trying to back me into a corner with no way out. Anxious and frantic, I went to find Paisei immediately. "Paisei, what the hell do you want?" Paisei grabbed my wrist tightly and sneered, "You ruined Xiao Wan, and you still have the nerve to ask me." All of Xiao Wan's personal information was leaked online, and countless people are attacking her. Last night, she slit her wrists. If I hadn't arrived in time, she'd probably be dead. She's lying in a hospital bed right now, suffering a fate worse than death, and yet you can stand here perfectly fine. How do you justify that? My expression darkened as I said coldly, "I had nothing to do with any of that. What possible reason would I have to harm her?" Paisei gave a cold, derisive laugh, his eyes filled with absolute conviction. "Lin Ji, cut the act. Just because I like Xiao Wan, you got jealous and used this despicable method to ruin her, trying to force me back with you. Didn't you?" I took a step back, thinking this person was utterly unreasonable. Paisei was still ranting on. "Lin Ji, even if you did this for my sake, you've gone too far this time. I can let the past slide, but you need to go online immediately and clarify that you deliberately framed her in all this. Then make a public apology to Xiao Wan." He looked at me, his gaze faltering for a moment. "If you can do that, I'll agree to get back together with you." I'm so angry I could laugh. If I try to clear things up, I'll definitely get cyberbullied. What about my safety then? Paisei was completely unconcerned. "It's not that serious. It's just a few nasty comments. No real harm. What's a little sacrifice to protect Xiao Wan?" I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. "Paisei, if you're so desperate to save Xiao Wan, why don't you go online and say it was all your fault? Admit you were the one fooling around, a shameless, promiscuous scoundrel." Paisei's face darkened instantly. "How could I possibly say that? If that got out, my reputation would be ruined. Don't you care about me at all?" I gave a cold, scornful laugh. He could righteously demand that I sacrifice my reputation, but when it was his turn, he knew how to refuse. I looked at him with utter disgust, enunciating each word slowly and clearly. "Paisei, the very thought that I once harbored genuine feelings for you makes me feel it's a stain on my life." Paisei's face fell, a tumultuous mix of shock, fury, and humiliation washing over him. I looked at him, feeling nothing but profound boredom. "Take back the modeling studio if you want. I have my own abilities. I don't need to live off anyone's charity." I turned and walked away, with Paisei shouting urgently after me, "Lin Ji." He got up to chase after me, but in his haste, he stumbled and fell hard to the ground. It was a nasty fall. Paisei's face twisted in pain, but I didn't stop. I kept walking, ignoring his calls, and never looked back. 12. In the days that followed, I began searching everywhere for a new venue, but no matter where I asked, I was turned down. I knew it had to be Paisei targeting me. I had just returned, disappointed, from a meeting with an agent when I suddenly spotted a familiar figure. Yi Mingji was dressed in casual clothes, which softened his usual icy demeanor, lending him a more approachable air. Upon seeing me, he gave a light cough, his expression turning slightly awkward. "Lin Ji," he said, "I was wondering if you might be interested in being my etiquette coach. As a medical expert, I often have to attend lectures and international conferences. My every word and action must uphold the dignity of my country, with my back against the wall." I had no choice but to agree for now. "All right, I'll teach you." Yi Mingji studied with great diligence. Occasionally, when he attended events, he would invite me along to provide guidance on his attire and demeanor. Word of mouth spread, and before long, a steady stream of clients began seeking me out. I decided to focus on my personal brand, and before I knew it, my career took off. Plans for a new studio are now underway. Then one day, a mutual friend brought up Pei. She mentioned that Xiaowan had finally married into the Pei family as she'd always wanted, but Pei's health seemed to have taken a turn. He'd been using a wheelchair recently and was rarely seen in public. At that, I was taken aback for a moment. For some reason, I was reminded of that day, the sight of Pei's clumsy fall after failing to catch up to me. After a moment's hesitation, I asked Yi Mingji, "Have you heard about what's been going on with Pei lately?" Yi Mingji's expression was placid. "Of course, I examined him just a fortnight ago. He's prone to emotional outbursts, and when he's lucid, he refuses to cooperate with his rehabilitation. On top of that, at this point," he paused, his expression turning somewhat odd. "After they got married, his wife was desperate to have a child, and they were reckless in the bedroom. Pei was already ill, and now, indulging in momentary pleasure, he was causing damage to both his brain and nerves. Right now, he's just in a wheelchair, but I'm afraid in a little while, he'll be completely paralyzed, unable to get up at all." Hearing this, I was rooted to the spot. The next moment, my phone suddenly rang. "It's Mrs. Pei, 13, she said Pei is paralyzed now, in a terrible state, but he keeps calling out my name, Lin Ji. Could you come and see him?" I wanted to refuse, but Mrs. Pei pleaded with me in a pitiful voice. "Lin Ji, if only for the sake of pitying an old woman like me, please go and talk some sense into him." I couldn't bring myself to turn her down, so I agreed. When I arrived at the Pei family's old house and pushed open the door, I saw Pei lying on the bed, his gaze fixed blankly on the ceiling. He had lost a great deal of weight, his face gaunt and his eyes sunken deep into their sockets. Hearing the sound, Pei turned to look at me, his eyes suddenly welling up. "Lin Ji, you're here." Glancing around, I realized Xiaowan was nowhere to be seen. Madame Pei sighed. Ever since she found out Aze's condition was worsening, that woman said she was going abroad to clear her head, she never came back. Pei looked at me with red-rimmed eyes, his voice choked with emotion. "Lin Ji, you're the woman from my dreams, aren't you?" He seemed to want to reach for me, but couldn't even move a finger. "I've had those dreams many times since." The woman in the dreams looked less and less like Xiaowan. "Xiaowan is selfish, malicious, and greedy, nothing like the beautiful vision in my dreams." It was then I realized the person in my dreams was always you, but I mistook Xiaowan for you, showered her with affection, and in doing so, I lost the one who truly loved me, you. I looked at Pei, my heart utterly calm. What's the point of saying all this now? Pei froze on the spot, as if struck by something. I stared at him coldly, enunciating each word deliberately. "Pei, before your first coma, I told you I loved dogs. And I even gave you a scarf I knitted myself, but you forgot what I said, and you threw that scarf right in the trash, because in your heart, you never cared about me." Pei's face turned deathly pale, his lips trembled, but no words came out for a long moment. I lowered my gaze. "Now that Xiaowan is gone, you've realized I'm the only one who would give everything for you, so now you've convinced yourself that I'm the one in your dreams, Pei. Your so-called awakening isn't because you love me, and it's certainly not because you've finally seen the truth. It's only because Xiaowan left, and there's no other woman around you willing to sacrifice everything for you like I did. You can't stand it. You can't stand being treated this way, so now you're trying to cling to me." Pei was left speechless. The last glimmer of light faded from his eyes, leaving him as lifeless and desolate as a withered tree, after what felt like an eternity. He bowed his head and suddenly broke down in tears. "Lin Ji, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I watched him, my heart now a still and placid lake. "Pei, it's over between us, completely." After saying that, I turned to leave, but Pei started shouting like a madman. "I know it's my fault, let's start over. There's still time, we still love each other, after all." I stopped in my tracks and looked back at him. "Pei, you once helped me when I was in dire straits. I remember your kindness, and so I repaid you with the 5 best years of my life, but you betrayed me. That one act of kindness only deserved 5 years of my goodwill in return, not a moment more." With those final words, I didn't linger for a second. I turned and strode away. Behind me was Pei's plaintive cry, Lin Ji, Lin Ji." Stepping out of the Pei residence, I looked up at the sky. The sky was blue with white clouds, a gentle breeze brushed by. It was a beautiful day. Back at the studio, I threw myself into my work, and my schedule was packed to the brim. That day, right after I finished teaching my students, I received a phone call. It was Yi Mingji. "Lin Ji, come to the window, look down. I walked to the window and saw Yi Mingji standing downstairs. He was wearing a white suit today, which accentuated his broad shoulders and long legs, giving him an elegant and refined look. At that moment, he was holding a large bouquet of white roses, looking up in my direction. Seeing me, Yi Mingji smiled and waved at me. His voice came through the phone. Lin Ji, would you give me a chance? The end. Story 2. On the day of the car accident and miscarriage, the hospital called my husband, but when the call connected, a man's deep, ambiguous voice came through. Darling, have a baby for me. I only want one from you. Soon after, his secretary took the call, her restrained tone laced with pride. President Jian had too much to drink. Madam, please don't take offense. If there's anything, you can tell me. I touched my flat stomach and said calmly, then please tell him to come and divorce me first before making babies. The time for pain has long passed. Signing that informed consent form for the induced abortion was a relief for both me and this child. When I first found out, I was overjoyed. I thought I could use this child to keep Tobias Jian, but only now have I come to realize, if I can't provide him with a healthy and loving family, then as a mother, I simply don't deserve to bring him into this world. The child is not a byproduct of my failed marriage. The hospital room was quite lively. Many former colleagues from the company, business partners, and close friends came to visit me, yet Tobias Jian, my husband in name, was conspicuously absent, even to outsiders. Neglecting a wife who had just suffered a miscarriage from a car accident would inevitably seem heartless. Finally, on the afternoon of the second day, I saw Tobias Jian. It was just financial news playing on his phone, with his ever-present assistant Ray Tian by his side, young and beautiful, just like I was when I accompanied him in starting his business. Standing quietly and gently beside him, watching him speak confidently in front of the camera, a perfect match, complementing each other like a pair of jade ornaments. Mr. Jian, do you have anything to say about securing this project, or anyone you'd like to thank? Tobias Jian turned his head slightly, exchanging a smile with Ray Tian beside him. Of course, the success of Jian Group today wouldn't have been possible without Ray's constant support and encouragement by my side. Whether in work or daily life, she is the most important person in my heart. The reporter's gossipy curiosity remained undiminished as the camera turned to Ray Tian. Ray Tian held Tobias Jian's hand, blatantly displaying it under the lens, their bodies pressed intimately together, and as the camera panned, Tobias Jian's hand was conspicuously bare of a wedding ring. Wow, truly heartwarming. We'll be eagerly awaiting good news from the two of you. Meanwhile, as one of the founders of Jian Group and Tobias Jian's legal wife, I was not even mentioned in his words, left to watch their affection unfold on screen from a hospital bed. How ironic, back when we were starting our business, I accompanied him delivering takeout, driving for Didi, setting up street stalls, and working night markets. At that time, we would share a single plate of fried noodles with eggs, and Tobias Jian would always pick out the cilantro first, then give me the eggs to eat. I will never forget the sparkle in 21-year-old Tobias Jian's eyes as he pushed the remaining noodles around and told me, Nora, I will always be good to you. When I have money, I'll help Nora pull out all the cilantro in the world. Back then, I never imagined that at 31, Tobias Jian would be holding another woman, saying she was the most important. Words spoken in love only hold meaning when love exists. Mrs. Chen noticed me staring blankly at the screen and walked over to take my phone. Replacing it with a lawyer's business card, she poked my head in frustration, her tone tinged with reproach. I told you before, you're just too straightforward. You poured your whole heart into him. Getting a divorce might be good, for both you and him. Once you've finished your postpartum rest, come with me to Japan for a hot spring bath. Consider it a way to unwind. He wronged you first, so make sure you get a fair share of the money in the divorce. The business card in my hand felt burning hot as I replied with a smile, all right. I just never expected that Tobias Jian and I, after so many years together, would end up like this. After being discharged from the hospital and returning to the villa, I began packing my things to move out. Just as I was about to pack the last box, Tobias Jian suddenly came back. His surprised voice sounded behind me. Nora Cui, what are you up to again? I turned around at the sound and glanced at his slightly disheveled attire. Just as I was about to say something, I noticed Tobias Jian's gaze was somewhat evasive, pressing his temples. He spoke first, as if trying to cover something up. I really don't know what more you could possibly be unsatisfied with in our current life. Are you only going to be happy when we get divorced? It's me who's working hard outside. Providing you with good food and a comfortable life now, living in a big house. Living like a noble woman, you don't have to work or do chores, yet every day you find reasons to make unreasonable demands. Ray said you've been calling me nonstop again. I've told you many times, my work requires social engagements, and drinking with clients to discuss business is also exhausting. I don't want to come home only to see you giving me attitude. As my wife, can't you try to understand me a little? Tobias Jian's preconceived anger left me momentarily at a loss for words. Being subjected to such baseless accusations would have made me argue fiercely with Tobias Jian in the past, but now, I simply looked at him calmly and nodded earnestly. I understand. Go upstairs and change your clothes. It's time to head to the company soon. Tobias Jian froze in place, looking at me with a strange and complicated gaze. He had prepared himself for a fierce argument, even venting his anger on me in advance, but I didn't even ask a single additional question. Tobias Jian walked slowly, watching me as I climbed the stairs, turning back every few steps. By the time he changed his clothes and came downstairs, I had already packed most of my things. Did Ray Tian inform you about the divorce? I'm still a director of the company for now. I'll go to the office this afternoon. It's better to notify the board about the divorce in advance, during this time. I'll move out. As for the property division related to the divorce, I'll have my lawyer contact you. My words made Tobias Jian pause for a moment. Just as he opened his mouth to say something, the doorbell rang again. It was Ray Tian. A young, beautiful face appeared at the door. I knew why Ray Tian had come. She was the one who answered that call. So of course she wanted to see how far things had escalated after her instigation and whether her position as Mrs. Jian could truly be secured. It's you. President Shui, last night, were you okay at home alone? President Jian got too happy and drank too much last night, insisting on clinging to me and refusing to come back here. I had no choice but to take him to my place. See, he even left his tie at my place without noticing, so I'm just returning it. By the way, whatever President Jian said yesterday was just drunken talk. Don't take it seriously. But since you're almost divorced now, you probably wouldn't mind, right? Ray Tian looked at me provocatively, deliberately saying ambiguous and provocative words to make me misunderstand. She didn't care at all. In fact, she couldn't wait for me to argue with her in front of Tobias Jian like I used to, but I merely responded with a word of acknowledgement, even stepping aside to let Ray Tian in, then considerately excused myself to leave, giving them space alone. Don't mind me. I have things to attend to. I'll take my leave now. That afternoon, I went to the company, under the name of Mrs. Jian. Since getting married, Tobias Jian had wanted me to focus on home life. I rarely visited the company anymore, so much so that, apart from the longtime employees, most staff only knew Tobias Jian had a wife but had never actually seen me. Later, Tobias Jian had taken off his wedding ring at some point. Presumably by then everyone in the company had assumed he was divorced. Now, with my sudden appearance, it was bound to spark gossip within the company. Didn't Mr. Jian stay at Secretary Tian's place last night? I thought he was already divorced. Then isn't Ray Tian the mistress who got involved and climbed her way up through the bed? The front desk and administrative staff were discussing quite loudly, not even noticing as I approached. I didn't pay much attention and turned to enter the elevator, heading straight to the meeting room. The board meeting went smoothly. I planned to handle the divorce matter discreetly, minimizing the impact on the company's stock price and transferring my shares to completely sever ties with the Jian family. Just as the meeting was concluding, Director Su suddenly spoke up. Let's all have a meal together. The board members, after all, we've worked together for so many years. I was the first investor Ray brought in. Now that Ray won't be around anymore, I must say I'll feel rather unaccustomed. I know a hotel with excellent food. Coincidentally, my wife just landed and has been saying she'd like to talk with you. I'll call her right away. Of course, Mr. Su's face is something both Tobias Jian and I would naturally honor. However, Ray Tian, who was closely following Tobias Jian, tugged at his sleeve, her eyes pleading as she looked at him. It was clear that Ray Tian really wanted Tobias Jian to take her along. In such a setting, Ray Tian, as a secretary, would find herself in an awkward position, and with me, his ex-wife, present, there's no guarantee I wouldn't make things difficult for his poor little secretary. Chances are, she won't be going. Tobias Jian turned his head away, just about to brush off Ray Tian's hand, and softly offered a few apologetic words of comfort, but I suddenly spoke up. considerate enough to even come up with an excuse for Tobias Jian. Alright, then Secretary Tian can join us, it's just about mealtime, and we're all familiar with each other anyway. Tobias Jian instinctively thought I intended to make things difficult for Ray Tian at the dinner table and coldly warned me in a low voice, Nora Chui, we're about to get divorced, don't make trouble, almost all the board members are here today, at worst, Ray won't attend, if you make a scene like a shrew at the dinner, do you want everyone to laugh at me? You may not care about face, but I do. I shook my head with a smile, somewhat unable to understand what he was thinking. It's just a meal. I won't make things difficult for her. Without giving him another glance, I smiled and accompanied Chairman Su as we walked away. When ordering at the table, the waiter casually asked, Sir, do you have any dietary restrictions, like onions, ginger, or garlic? Tobias Jian answered quickly, almost without hesitation, I eat everything, no dietary restrictions. I remembered the cilantro that was personally picked out from the egg-fried noodles back then. Tobias Jian really forgot everything thoroughly. It was just Mrs. Chen who spoke up from the side, glancing sideways at Tobias Jian and adding, I don't eat cilantro. I remember Nora doesn't eat cilantro. I gave Mrs. Chen a grateful smile. I didn't really mind, it was just a social meal. At worst, I could simply avoid reaching for that dish. There was no need to embarrass Tobias Jian over such a trivial matter, perhaps because of this incident. Tobias Jian seemed somewhat guilty. Throughout the meal, his gaze kept drifting furtively in my direction. He also appeared distracted when responding to Ray Tian's attempts at conversation and when she served him food, until Mrs. Su personally served me a bowl of chicken soup. I heard from our little girl at the hospital last time that you're pregnant. Congratulations. Why are you eating so little? You're eating for two now. You need more nutrition. The chickens here are all free-range black-bone chickens, the most nourishing kind. I was taken aback for a moment. The mere thought of that unborn child inevitably stirs up a pain as fine and sharp as needle pricks in my heart. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Chairman Su's expression had changed beside me. Presumably, Madame Su had just returned from her overseas trip and might not yet be fully aware of my current situation. Madame Su meant well and was genuinely concerned about me. I didn't blame her. With a faint smile, I softly thanked her and accepted the bowl of chicken soup. Tobias Jian's cup toppled over, the glass making a sharp clinking sound. His expression was a mix of joy and shock. Even Ray Tian beside him grew tense, frowning deeply. His gaze shifted from Madame Su to me. You're pregnant. The dining table fell into silence, as if no one knew how to break the ice. Didn't you know? But Nora had a car accident last week and miscarried. The baby didn't make it. Let's eat. Under Tobias Jian's furious glare, I put an end to further discussion on the topic. The child is already gone. There's no point in Tobias Jian talking any more about it. Seeing my cold expression, Tobias Jian suddenly stood up, muttered an apology to the others at the table, and pulled me outside. I hadn't planned to hide it from him, and I knew this day of reckoning would come eventually. Why didn't you tell me? When Tobias Jian turned to face me, I noticed his eyes were already red. I scoffed. What was this supposed to mean? Crocodile tears. I didn't mind driving the knife deeper into Tobias Jian's heart. I called you so many times from the hospital that day. You had blocked my number, so you didn't answer. You picked up when I called back the next day. But what were you doing with Ray Tian then? Tobias Jian, what are you crying about? Are you sad for this child? But didn't you tell Ray Tian to have another one for you? Didn't you say you only wanted children from her? Tobias Jian choked up, his voice trembling as he asked me, that was all drunken talk. I'm sorry. Do you hate me? Tobias Jian's casual apology ignited the long-suppressed anger in my heart. I raised my arm high and slapped him hard across the face. This slap is for my child. It was you who tearfully told me when we got married that we would have a home and family from then on. My child and I searched for you in the pouring rain, only to find you entangled with another woman. Do you know that because there was no family member present, the nurse had to hold my hand to sign the informed consent for the induced abortion? Tobias Jian, what right do you have to cry? After all these years with you, watching you gradually become the person you are now. Tobias Jian, I'm truly exhausted. I took a deep breath and turned to leave. My steps faltered as Tobias Jian grabbed my sleeve. Nora, we don't have to get divorced. I'll take care of you from now on. I turned my head and forcefully shook off Tobias Jian's hand. What is this? Compensation, charity, or guilt? If you really feel guilty, just give me more money in the divorce settlement. Actually, when love is gone, many things become much easier to handle. The next day, after signing the divorce agreement, I discussed the division of assets with Tobias Gian alongside my lawyer. A long conference table brutally severed the 14 years between Tobias Gian and me. First, your side was at fault during the marriage, according to news media reports and your own tacit admission, Mr. Gian. You had an inappropriate relationship with Ray Tion, the company's internal secretary. Second, my client, Ms. Nora, co-founded the company with you, and your marital relationship lasted for 10 years. To summarize, this is the property division plan we have drafted. When the lawyer handed over the agreement, Tobias Gian seemed dazed and only murmured, 10 years. It was clear that Tobias Gian had a lot on his mind, but I truly didn't have time to indulge his melancholy. I just wanted to be free. I tapped the table to bring his thoughts back to the present. Take a look at the contract. Tobias Gian snapped out of his thoughts and looked up at me. I couldn't quite decipher the complexity in his gaze. It was as if he was looking at me, yet also at the version of me from 10 years ago. With a bitter laugh, he pulled out a pen and swiftly signed his name. The lawyer beside him seemed about to say more, but Tobias Gian simply uttered, "Sorry, this is what I owe you." I didn't expect things to be resolved so straightforwardly. When I pushed open the conference room door, Ray Tion had already been waiting for a long time. It seemed she truly couldn't wait to take her place. Now, it seems she's gotten her wish. Just like countless times before, she walked toward Tobias Gian with a smile, casting a victorious, mocking glance at me. Linking arms with Tobias Gian, she cooed, "It's over now, right? Once the divorce cooling-off period ends, let's have a grand wedding." Okay. Even when I was furious, Tobias Gian never shied away from Ray Tion's closeness in the past. Now, however, he awkwardly pulled his hand away from Ray Tion's and looked at me, saying, "If you ever need help in the future, don't hesitate to tell me." My mocking expression was unmistakable as I snapped back at Tobias Gian, "If I need help, I'll call 110 myself. The police will arrive faster than you." Tobias Gian, as a husband, you're truly useless. I flew to Japan, accepting Mrs. Chen's invitation. I planned to relax and wait for the end of the divorce cooling-off period. Having been Mrs. Gian for so many years, the tension in my heart never eased. The larger the company grew, the more there was to consider. There was also the social aspect, managing relationships with the wives of the upper-class circle. Even after stepping back into domestic life, clashes and conflicts with Tobias Gian over investments and development directions were inevitable. It seemed that after a particularly heated argument sparked by my veto of an investment direction, Tobias Gian finally backed down. But seeing his foul mood, I decided to personally go to the company to soothe him. I watched coldly as Ray Tion flirted and chatted with him, the two standing close, their breaths mingling. Her eyes sparkled with admiration and adoration, just like mine once had. I still couldn't hold back. I rushed forward and slapped Ray Tion. I clearly remember Tobias Gian firmly shielding her in his arms, his cold expression mercilessly accusing me. "Nora Chue, isn't it enough for you to go crazy at home? Do you want to cause a scene at the company too? She's just my secretary." We were only discussing that rejected proposal. She wouldn't ignore all my efforts no matter what I say. Unlike you, that's why we had a slightly more pleasant conversation. "Nora Chue, can't you be more generous?" From then on, conflicts kept leaking out like water from a cracked jar. Tobias Gian and Ray Tion grew closer and closer. I became like a cornered beast, a resentful woman unable to seek justice, storming into Tobias Gian's office in a complete meltdown. The entire top-floor executive offices probably heard the commotion. Tobias Gian was eerily calm at that moment, silently closing the door behind him. He dragged me in front of the mirror, forcing me to face my reflection, and said coldly, "Nora Chue, look at yourself right now. This is a company, yet you're acting like a shrew, making a scene. Do you think you still resemble Mrs. Gian in the slightest? You've become someone I don't recognize at all. Let's get a divorce." As I walked away in despair, I happened to bump into Ray Tion, who was bringing food to Tobias Gian, her eyes sparkling, a smile on her lips. She eagerly rushed toward him, intimately and thoughtfully. She lifted the lid of the food container for him, holding chopsticks as they chatted about trivial matters at the company, just like that year when Tobias Gian and I squatted on the concrete floor, discussing what goods to stock up for the night market to sell better the next day. In that instant, I clearly realized that times had changed, and things were different now. Comfortable days passed by in a leisurely manner for nearly a month. Here, ginger tea, It helps ward off the cold. What are you thinking about? You seem so lost in thought. Mrs. Chen saw me soaking in the hot spring without saying a word, patted my shoulder, and handed me a cup of ginger tea. I smiled without speaking and shook my head in silence. Noticing my ambiguous expression, Mrs. Chen started chatting. Do you know about the recent incident at the company? I took a sip of tea and looked at Mrs. Chen, asking, what's the matter? I barely kept up with news from back home since coming here. Mrs. Chen leaned in with a gleeful expression and said, it's about that affair where Ray Tian became the mistress who got promoted to wife. Remember when they gave that interview to the financial news outlet, all lovey-dovey in the video? Now it's been exposed that she was the other woman who got the upper hand, abandoning the faithful first wife. Even the footage of your car accident that day has been dug up. The PR department's phones are practically smoking from all the calls. Who in the circle actually respects her? Just the other day at the banquet, Mrs. Su splashed a glass of red wine on her, saying the collection wasn't to be touched by dirty hands. Ray Tian was so furious she trembled all over. At the company, she's just a secretary with no real power. People talk behind her back all the time. I suspect it was done by a competitor. The online backlash is huge, with waves of criticism. The company's stock dropped 2 points that very day. I bet it's still falling now. Ray Tian's phone and email must be flooded with hate lately. Wasn't Ray Tian pushing for marriage all along? Well, now with this scandal, the board, who already opposed it, has the perfect excuse. If they actually went through with it, the company's reputation would be ruined. I nodded, thinking she deserved it, but the assets have been mostly divided up, so there's no way the fallout could land on me, though it should stop today. Tobias Jian announced a collaboration with OPCI, saying they're establishing a subsidiary focused on biopharmaceuticals combined with artificial intelligence. It's quite a gimmick, and the media is uniformly touting it as promising. However, the specific proposal hasn't been released yet. It suddenly dawned on me, wasn't this the exact investment proposal I had vetoed before? He quickly pressed down on Mrs. Chen's hand and advised in a low voice, don't invest. This project has issues. Is it a problem with OPCI company? I set the teacup aside and continued following Mrs. Chen's line of questioning. Yes, I once vetoed this proposal. OPCI is a leader in the biopharmaceutical industry in the U.S., with proprietary patents. From a profit perspective, there's absolutely no need to choose Jian Corp as a partner to share the market. I have some information, but not enough to serve as evidence. I suspect the additives in OPCI's products are non-compliant, at least not in line with China's market regulations. Otherwise, there would be no reason to collaborate with a local Chinese company. Moreover, the proposal only required Jian Corp to provide facilities and financial support, with no direct connection to their core business in artificial intelligence. Such requirements could easily be met by other, more reputable companies with better platforms. How could OPCI possibly bring such a massive proposal to share such a big pie the very next week? Simply because of personal charm and thinking Tobias Jian seemed like a decent person during a conversation at a cocktail party. Mrs. Chen nodded thoughtfully. Yes, the company has been making major moves recently. Tobias Jian almost seems intent on investing half the company into this project. He previously bought shares from you at a high price and now effectively holds absolute decision-making power over the company by default. I straightened up from the hot soup, preparing to leave. It's best to have a backup plan. You can privately contact a professional manager and prepare to sell your shares. If the Jian family encounters problems, it will be absolutely irreparable. Book the tickets. This matter can't be delayed. We need to return. If our competitors find out, it won't just be a matter of taking a small loss anymore. Mrs. Chen also became serious after hearing my words. This matter truly cannot be delayed. It's about time too. Once the divorce cooling off period ends, I will officially terminate my marital relationship with Tobias Jian. On the day I officially received the divorce certificate, I saw Tobias Jian again. He looked quite spirited, no doubt because the OPCI project had been going well for him lately. However, his expression dimmed noticeably when his gaze landed on me. I nodded at him in acknowledgement. Let's go. Tobias Jian bit his lip, his expression conflicted. I saw the video from that day on the news. Have you been recovering well lately? I noticed you lost a lot of blood back then and seemed barely conscious. I truly regret not answering that call. If I had been willing to talk things through with you, whether it was you or that child, perhaps no one would have gotten hurt. maybe we should take some more time to cool off. I froze for a moment before realizing what he meant. Shaking my head, I pushed the divorce papers toward Tobias Jian. There's no need for that, just sign it. Tobias Jian's hand trembled as he held the pen, reminding me of when I signed that informed consent form for the induced abortion. Just the same, shaking so badly I could barely hold it. Suddenly I noticed Ray Tian was actually absent from today's occasion. At least it gave me some peace and quiet. I really don't want to give her even the slightest bit of courtesy. The moment I received the divorce certificate, it felt like cutting out a malignant tumor that had been growing in my body for years. I only felt relief. As I was about to leave, I still couldn't shake my concern for Jancher. The company I had co-founded with my own hands. I turned back and mentioned it to Tobias Jian. That OPIC project, you ended up pushing it through after all. I remember telling you more than once that this project carries certain risks. No sooner had I finished speaking than I saw Ray Tian clattering toward us in her high heels. It turns out it wasn't about giving me peace, just that you were late. You're not even part of Jian Corporation anymore. What right do you have to boss people around? Let me tell you, it's your own lack of capability. I personally introduced the OPIC project to Tobias Jian. The vice president on the other side was willing to give Jian Corporation extra consideration only because of my alumni connection with him and the fact that we share the same mentor, Nora Cui. Don't think that just because you've been a housewife for too long and have no skills of your own, you can go around sabotaging other people's projects. Seeing that Tobias Jian and I had obtained our divorce certificate, Ray Tian spoke with much more confidence. Tobias Jian scolded Ray Tian in a low voice before turning to me. I'm sorry, she's been too busy with work lately and spoke without thinking. I apologize on her behalf. However, the OPIC project was personally overseen and researched by Ray. I believe there shouldn't be any issues, Nora. Perhaps you were just being overly cautious back then. You can't save those who are hell-bent on destruction. Let go of the savior complex and respect others' fate. Anyway, the money is already in hand, so let them run the company however they please. I nodded somewhat perfunctorily and said, that's great, I'll take my leave now. Ray Tian is clearly not one to stay quiet, boldly putting an arm around Tobias Jian right in front of me to flaunt their relationship. Take care. And when Tobias Jian and I get married, you must come as a senior guest to celebrate with us. Tobias Jian's face darkened instantly, and he immediately pushed Ray Tian away. What's wrong with you? Didn't I tell you that the public opinion about us isn't good right now, and we need to keep a low profile? Also, didn't I ask you not to come yesterday? Why did you come again? Tobias Jian, I was just worried she might bother you. Now that you're divorced, the two of you are strangers with no connection. You really shouldn't meet with her anymore. Tobias Jian's tone grew even more impatient. Ray Tian, can you stop being so unreasonable? She is my ex-wife, and we once had a child together. How could we possibly be strangers? If you're so free, why don't you check on the progress of OPIC or go have afternoon tea with those ladies or something? You know very well that those ladies are all thinking about Nora Cui. They say it's disgraceful for me to be with you, look down on me, and make things difficult for me. I really don't want to keep getting the cold shoulder anymore. I had no time to listen to Tobias Jian and Ray Tian argue, so I turned and walked away. Ray Tian is just the next version of me. No sooner had I walked away than Mrs. Chen's call came through. A sudden sense of foreboding rose in me as I swiped to answer. How did it go? Her voice on the other end carried the flustered tone of someone who'd narrowly escaped disaster. Good thing I went in person. Just as you said, their medications were indeed problematic. The over-the-counter painkillers they primarily sell contain large amounts of banned substances. My heart sank as I pressed further. What is it? An excessive dose of stimulants, chlorotriphenylethylamine, can be fatal. Before I could process this, Mrs. Chen dropped another bombshell. The parent company at OPIC in the U.S. has run into trouble. Excessive stimulants have already caused 2 deaths, but the families were paid off to keep quiet. It's also because the market there is unsafe that they're now eyeing our domestic market. I've already sold off most of my shares and secretly sent someone to inform Madame Sue. I doubt this can be kept under wraps for much longer. Most of the drugs have already hit the market. It'll blow up in at most half a month, but before that, I need to vent some anger for you first. The next day, as soon as Madame Chen returned from the U.S., Ray Tian begged to see her. When I rushed over, I finally understood what Madame Chen meant on the phone about venting anger for me. Please, you must not withdraw your investment at this time. If word gets out, the whole deal will collapse. The profit margin on these drugs is 500%. and they're selling extremely well, I guarantee it. I'll split the earnings with you 50-50, if that's not acceptable, you take 70, I'll take 30, Mrs. Chen saw me arrive and beckoned me over, saying, Nora, over here, I've told you, Ray Tian, instead of begging me, you'd better beg Nora. I'm not the only one who knows about this, she vetoed that proposal precisely because of this. Too bad you're just an idiot. Ray Tian bit her lower lip, not daring to say anything more even as she was being scolded to her face. She turned to me with an ingratiating smile. President Chui is here, try the tea I just brewed. Now I understand why Ray Tian managed to win Tobias Jian's favor. I thought you were busy with wedding preparations. What, you still have time to invite me and Mrs. Chen for tea today? I've been waiting for your invitation. You don't look well. What's wrong? Another argument. Ray Tian blushed at my words but still retorted stubbornly, no, it's not about that, it's about OPIC. I was hoping you and Mrs. Chen could help. I can't help, you're so close to the vice president over there. And you're the one who secured this project for Tobias Jian. When the time comes, you'll split the profits together, and if there's trouble, you'll share the sell too, won't you? Ray Tian turned pale with fear at my words, her knees suddenly gave way, and she knelt on the ground, clutching the hem of my clothes as she pleaded, please, you can't let this get out. Most of the drugs have already been sold. With sales like this, I'll definitely go to jail. It was only because my senior said it was discreet, profitable, and that such a small dosage wouldn't cause any problems that President Chui, you built Jiancher from the ground up, surely you can't bear to see it collapse like this. It was my fault for being blinded by greed. I saw how young and handsome President Jian was, so much better looking than those pot-bellied men, and that's why I interfered in your marriage. Otherwise, with my youth, beauty, and decent education, I could have found any handsome man I wanted. I raised an eyebrow and tightened my grip on the phone in my hand, signaling Ray Tian to continue. Seeing that my expression wasn't too bad, Ray Tian grew bolder and seized the opportunity to push further. President Chui, if you could just be merciful and let this go. I promise to stay far away from Tobias Jian. I don't want to get burned either, but could you perhaps give me some compensation for breaking up? Hearing Ray Tian's words, I almost wanted to laugh. You marry Tobias Jian first and then divorce him. By then, not to mention the breakup fee, you'll have even your retirement money all earned by yourself. Isn't that what you're here for? Why come begging for my advice now? Tobias Jian, for some reason, just refuses to marry me no matter what. I don't want to waste my youth on him until I'm a haggard old woman. Mr. Chui, don't worry, just promise me, and I'll fly abroad tomorrow. I nodded with amusement and motioned for Ray Tian to look behind her. Did you hear that, Tobias Jian? Forbes says you're worth $5 billion, but in your little secretary's eyes, you're only worth 20 million RMB, not even a fraction of my divorce settlement. Tobias Jian couldn't have grown the Jian family business to its current scale by being a complete fool. He probably uncovered something from OPIC's internal records back home. And with both Madame Chen and Director Su withdrawing their investments, that's why he came to me. As soon as Madame Chen mentioned Ray Tian was planning to sacrifice the pawn to save the king, I brought Tobias Jian along to see what his precious little secretary was really up to. Tobias Jian had clearly been listening to everything from the private room at the back, his face dark with anger as he strode over. Did you know about the project's issues all along? Ray Tian never expected to see Tobias Jian here. She froze in place, stunned for 2 seconds before snapping back to reality and defending herself. I didn't know anything. Tobias Jian, it was Nora Chui who paid me to break up with you. Slap. A slap sent Ray Tian into complete daze. I really didn't expect you. I thought you were sincere. You're just disgusting. I've already called the police. You can explain this matter to them yourself. I've recalled the drug sales. I don't want to go to jail. At the mention of calling the police, Ray Tian immediately stood up, grabbing Tobias Jian's tie and demanding, "You're calling the police on me. How dare you call the police on me? Tobias Jian, let me tell you, do you think you'll be fine if I go down? At worst, we'll go to jail together. Do you think you can walk away unscathed? Once the drugs are recalled, the funding chain will collapse, the entire Jian family will be dragged down. By then, both you and I will be penniless." Tobias Jian, have you lost your damn mind? If I'd known it would come to this, I might as well have hooked up with a sugar daddy. You're just a worthless piece of trash. Ray Tian was furious, clearly having lost the patience to keep up the act. She tore off her gentle and understanding facade in front of Tobias Jian, revealing the greedy and selfish truth beneath. the disgust and disappointment in Tobias Jian's eyes were genuine, mixed with the anger of being deceived. He pushed Ray Tian away and slapped her across the face. Ray Tian no longer bothered to pretend either. She retaliated in pain, and the two immediately began to brawl. The love and sweetness displayed in the media back then were still vivid in memory, yet now they had descended into such a state, I couldn't be bothered to watch the commotion anymore. After calling the police, I pulled Mrs. Chen away and left. That same day, I saw the news about Tobias Jian and Ray Tian's public spat in the social section. What the hell do you think you are? If it weren't for your money, would I even look at you? In a few years, you'll reek of old age, yet you dare lay hands on me. Disgusting. Ray Tian, if you hadn't pretended to be drunk, barged into my room, and stripped off your clothes back then, I had a wife and family, how would I have ended up with you? What? Now that you're a whore, you're looking down on your benefactor. If money can buy you, what's with the act of playing hard to get? Aren't you, Tobias Jian, just obsessed with this bitch that I am? You abandoned your wife at home. Didn't she try to talk sense into you? But you wouldn't listen. You only wanted to hear what I had to say. Now that things have gone wrong, you're trying to pin the blame on me. Coward. The two hurled insults furiously, and within moments, they were brawling again, only calming down after the furious police officers handcuffed them. The public uproar had already sent the company's stock prices plummeting, and before the storm could settle, the announcement of a drug recall pushed Jian Corp. To declare an immediate delisting. Within days, the company announced it had entered bankruptcy proceedings, compensation for some consumers who have used the medication, the company's financial shortfall, creditors' demands. One expense after another is burning through money. Even mortgaging all the properties and cars under Tobias Jian's name couldn't cover this financial hole. The once illustrious Tobias Jian has now, just as Ray Tian said, become a complete and utter pauper. However, Ray Tian isn't faring any better. After leaving the police station, she immediately transferred the money to an overseas account, grabbed her passport, and prepared to continue her carefree life abroad, only to be detained at the airport. Tobias Jian and Ray Tian are currently being prosecuted as the masterminds behind economic crimes and the alleged production and sale of toxic and harmful food. According to the lawyer who handled my divorce, Tobias Jian is expected to be sentenced to 3 to 5 years, while Ray Tian, who attempted to flee and is one of the masterminds, could face 7 or 8 years. I can only sigh at the irony. Going to prison together might as well be the fulfillment of their love. 7 years later, when I returned to my alma mater with my child, the phone in my hand was still carrying Mrs. Chen's endless gossip. Nora, Ray Tian is dead. Dead? How? That woman, she had just gotten out of prison when she hooked up with President Yen. Before she could even secure her position, Mrs. Yen found out. You know, their family has a lot of influence in Myanmar. I heard they beat him with electric batons in the water prison and then sold him to the red light district. Who knows how he died? Daring to mess with Mr. Yen, he's over 60 years old, and with Mrs. Yen's temper, Ray Tian got what she deserved. She's already been to prison and still hasn't learned her lesson. Watching my daughter run ahead, I grew anxious and hurried to catch up with her. Jia, slow down, it's crowded here. Be careful not to fall or bump into anyone. The kid was overjoyed as soon as she returned to the country. I'll keep an eye on her for now, Mrs. Chen. I'll hang up first. And we can talk more when we meet tomorrow. Jia, who lives abroad, was very intrigued by the night market stalls back home. She dashed straight ahead without hesitation, and I had no choice but to quickly follow her until we stopped in front of a vendor. Looking up again, after so many years, I saw Tobias Jian at the night market stall by the school gate. His messy hair, sallow and dark face, paired with his now overweight and out-of-shape figure, he was squatting in front of the stall, buying toys that children love, and stealing a moment to eat a bowl of fried noodles with eggs. Nora, you. Their eyes met, and Tobias Jian's eyes reddened. He spoke somewhat awkwardly. Long time no see. I heard you went abroad. What happened back then was my fault. Because of Ray Tian, we lost our child, got divorced, and even the Jian family business collapsed. When I set up my stall here, I often thought of you and our past. All these years, I've been constantly reminiscing about our history together. Back then, we were poor, but we were so happy. Do you think we still have any chance to? Tears welled up in Tobias Jian's eyes. Jia ran closer, tugged at my sleeve, and said, Mom, I'm hungry. When is Dad coming to pick me up? Tobias Jian stared at the child, momentarily stunned. do you have children? I took over the conversation and nodded, saying, yes, I'm married. This is my daughter, Jejia. Tobias Jian's words stuck in his throat as he tried to say something. Jejia pointed behind them and shouted, Mom, Dad is here. My husband stood by the car, holding a bouquet of roses, waving at me from a distance. I couldn't help but smile, then turned my gaze to Tobias Jian. Impossible, absolutely impossible in this lifetime. I'm very happy now. My husband is sore. The Russian businessman who once struck up a conversation with me at a cocktail party. You've met him before. I'm ready to take Jejia far away. As I left, I turned back with a smile and said to him, if the accident hadn't happened back then, our child would be older than Jejia now. I could see the pain and struggle in Tobias Jian's eyes growing more intense. This is my final revenge on Tobias Jian, a thorn that can never be pulled out. Forever haunting, forever aching. He might still set up his street stall at the night market for a long time, eating countless plates of fried noodles with eggs, but there will never again be a 21-year-old Nora Chui by his side, chatting away and picking out the cilantro for him. Tobias Jian will forever be a damp, crumpled bedsheet in the rainy season, unable to stretch out, unable to dry, unable to be wrung of water, quietly left in the corner to mold and rot. Daddy, why do you say Mommy is also a baby? And I'm a baby too. Sawa placed the rose on the car hood, smiling as he patted Jejia's head with one hand and pulled me into his embrace with the other. Because Mommy is also the person Daddy loves the most. You're both Daddy's babies. I returned the hug and replied, I love you. Saul smiled, with a